Good morning, everybody. Welcome to part 4 of the Willys project. I had about a 6-week delay in this project because the carburetor was on back order, but it finally arrived in the mail. This is, of course, the new carburetor, and this is not a $35 Chinesium Amazon carburetor. This is a high-quality USA made replica of the original. So I think we're going to be very happy with this. Fingers crossed. We should be able to bolt it on and run it without too much trouble. Might have to, adjust the mixture just a little bit, but we'll see. This is the new diffuser gasket assembly, and this is the old one. You see any difference there? This old one came apart. You can see there's some of it still on the bottom of this old carburetor. And we definitely had a fuel leak down here. We were probably sucking air too. We probably had a vacuum leak there. So anyway, this is what we've been waiting on, and we're going to get this installed right away, and hopefully this thing will fire up. So the purpose of today's video is to get the new carburetor installed on the truck, get it started, get the carburetor tuned, and make sure everything that we did in parts 1, 2, and 3 actually work. Because it's been a little while since we worked on this last, let me give you about a 60-second recap just to get everybody back up to speed. I pulled the engine and we replaced the ring gear on the flywheel. I replaced the drive gear on the starter. We have new spark plugs, new spark plug wires, new distributor cap, rotor, condenser, and points, new ignition coil, new section of rubber fuel line right there, and a new section of steel fuel line. I replaced both of the front engine mounts. I fixed a broken off bolt in the fan. We repaired and fabricated a new bottom for this battery tray and painted it. New upper and lower radiator hoses, new heater hoses. We did an oil change in the engine, also put a new oil filter in it. There's fresh coolant in the radiator. And I fixed the hood latch so it works now like it should. I installed a new gasket between the exhaust pipe and the exhaust manifold. These studs here are 3/8 24. The threads are fine, but they were all just kind of caked with dirt and materials. So we're using a 3/8 24 die to chase the threads and clean the threads. The diffuser gasket goes on first, and then our beautiful new carburetor. All right, the carburetor is installed. It took longer than I thought it was going to. It's just a little bit tedious with the throttle linkage and the choke linkage and the fuel lines and the vacuum line for the windshield wiper. Anyway, I've got the air intake hose back on, the crankcase breather there. I think we're all set. I did come over and check the oil in the bottom of the oil bath air filter assembly, and it slipped it on my hands and fell down there, and I got oil all over the front differential and all over the ground over there. It's amazing what a mess 1/2 quart of oil will make. So as you can see right now, there's no fuel in the sediment bowl, right? Because we just installed everything. Everything's dry. There's no fuel up here at all near the engine. Turn the ignition on and crank it over, and it's going to take a few seconds for the fuel pump to pull fuel from the rear of the vehicle where the gas tank is. So it's not going to take very long, but it will take a few seconds of cranking before anything happens. Also, when it's warm like it is now, I don't have to give it any choke or any throttle whatsoever to start it. I just push on the starter button and it fires right up. And just a side note for later on, I've confirmed that the temperature gauge is not working and neither is the fuel gauge. So I'll have to repair both of those as well. I also have to fix this door because sometimes it doesn't latch. Although the temperature gauge is not working, the engine seems to be running nice and cool, so that is fantastic news. All right, it's actually the next morning now. I demonstrated how easy the truck starts now when the engine is warm, but I also wanted to try a cold start on it because that's quite a different operation than starting an engine when it's already warm. I also wanted to show you something here real quick. This carburetor is designed such that when you pull the choke lever in the cab, it will also open the throttle butterfly a little bit without you putting your foot on the foot pedal. Let me demonstrate that from inside the cab and keep your eyes right there. So you don't need to have the choke lever pulled all the way out and have your foot, pumping on the gas pedal while you're trying to start it because it's already got the throttle open. So the engine was kind of hard to start before we did all this work to it. You had to use a lot of choke and a lot of throttle to get it to fire off. And if you remember, the carburetor was leaking quite badly from many different places. We were getting way too much fuel into the cylinders. It was running way too rich. And it was just a terrible air-fuel mixture overall because of the carburetor. Well, now we have a good carburetor with no leaks whatsoever. New spark plugs, new ignition components. So the engine's going to run a little bit differently now than it did before, and it's also going to start differently than it did before. It should start much easier, and it should require less choke and less throttle. So my first attempt at a cold start, I'm going to try half choke and no throttle and see what happens. Well, she's running great. She starts easy. The repair we made to the flywheel ring gear and the starter, those were both a success. And the new carburetor just made all the difference in the world. For the engine oil, I used 1030 conventional, and I also added some of this oil treatment with zinc. And then I threw a can of Berryman's in the fuel tank. And we'll keep running it and keep checking the spark plugs and things, but I think we're ready to move on. Before I wrap up this video, I want to pull one of the spark plugs. We'll get our eyeballs on it, see what kind of mix we actually have. I think we're in the ballpark, but let's take a look. Look how nice that looks compared to when we first pulled him out of the engine. This is a sign of a good air-fuel mix. On the next video, I'm going underneath. We're going to look at the frame and the suspension and the wheels and the wheel bearing, the front and rear differentials. We'll check out both drive shafts. Although the transmission seems to be working flawlessly, it is very low on oil for some reason. We checked that in one of the previous videos. So at the very least, we have to add oil to the transmission. Hopefully we don't have an issue there, like a big leak or something. So we still got a lot of work left on this old rig, but we're making good progress. Thanks everybody for watching as usual. We'll catch you on the next video. Take care.